from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. They are saying that based on readings, there has been a tsunami that was generated by this 8.6 quake off the coast of Sumatra. However, it does not appear at this time that the tsunami was very large. A couple of things. We're going to go ahead and take some time to explain this. This is the epicenter of the quake, and Ivan, if you're listening to me, go ahead and zoom into these areas right in here. These are the areas where the buoys were actually located. There are two. One of them is in Melapong, Indonesia, and I marked them right over here. One of them is just off the coast of Indonesia right here in the north, and that one had a reading of less than a foot, 0.9 foot. The other one in Sabang is a little farther to the south right over here, and that one had a sea level measure of about a foot. This is in the waves. This is the waves out in the water. This does not mean that that was the size of the tsunami when it actually reached the shoreline. That is yet to be confirmed, so that's very important to know. It is common for quakes this size to generate tsunamis. However, not every large quake will generate the same type of tsunami or a tsunami every single time. So those are important things. Now, there's also a buoy that is located, and let's go ahead and go north. It's right over here, just in the middle portion right here of the Indian Ocean. It's the only buoy that is actually out there, and this was installed after that quake, that terrible quake several years ago, and tsunami in that area, and that one actually had a reading of less than 0.1 foot. So there's an indication of those waves, that slight changes in the sea level pressure that have been noted by these measurements that the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center is saying. Now, one of the things that they are adding, and this is very important, that if there was a tsunami that was going to hit the coastline right over here, that would have already happened. So we're still waiting on confirmation of that. Whether it was destructive or not, it's still, we don't have that information. You can see that this is located at a certain distance from that epicenter, and these areas would have been the first ones to have experienced that tsunami wave with little or no warning. The only warning would have been the quake itself. The other thing that they're saying is if once several hours have passed, 2 to 3 hours, you can see, and nothing has happened in some of these areas nearby, you can safely assume that there's possibly not a tsunami. We're talking about areas in the immediate vicinity of the epicenter, not for areas farther away. So if within 2 hours nothing has happened, possibly that means that the danger may have passed. However, localized areas may still experience problems with currents or smaller waves, so it's still locally there could be some issues. So not a time to let your guard down just yet. Let's go ahead and switch sources over here. The reason, Monita, they're saying that this may not have been as large of a tsunami as other times, even though we have this 8.6 magnitude quake, is because of the type of fault line where this actually occurred. There are different types of fault lines. And when we were talking about the earthquake several years ago that had that terrible Indian Ocean-wide tsunami, that was an area that was a more up and down motion. And in this case, we're looking more side to side motion. So less water, a smaller volume of water, even though it was a large quake, is actually displaced. The more water that is displaced, and that happens with that up and down motion. Imagine if you are in a pool and all of a sudden you take your hand and you push your hand down like that. You're going to have a large wave that comes over to the side. If you put your hand in the pool and you move it side to side, less water is displaced. So this is precisely what we're talking about here with the different types of fault lines. In this case, there was more of a side to side motion that occurred. So even though it could still generate a tsunami, it wouldn't be as large as when you have an up and down motion on the Earth's crust that would move a larger amount of water. So that is why this is less likely to cause a destructive tsunami as opposed to a different type of quake. This is called a strike-slip fault. We can still, and that is still a concern to me, let's go ahead and go back to Google, because this is still a concern to me, the areas along the coastline right over here, if they actually did have any kind of damage, not so much from the possible tsunami, but also from the actual shaking. The colors that you see on here are called the shake map, and what you have right over here, you see these very light colors right over here where you see a little bit more yellow as opposed to blue. That would have indicated that they would have experienced strong shaking, and it would depend how well prepared those structures and the people who live in those structures are to a large earthquake. So we don't have that information yet, but I just wanted to make sure that I explained to you that even though a small tsunami was generated, we still don't have enough information to say whether or not these areas can stand down and that tsunami watch continues. Back to you.